Hello, and welcome to the Lines That Never Were series, where we talk about proposed but forgotten New York City subway projects. In this video, we will talk about the Southeast Queens Line, including its history, remnants, and whether the Southeast Queens Lines make sense today. Southeast Queens was always proposed to be served well by trains. In 1920, planners proposed to build multiple new lines in southeastern Queens. That involved extending the current BMT Jamaica L, the BMT Fulton Street L, the IRT New Lots line to the border of Nassau County, and building a new South 4th Street subway and running it via Jamaica Avenue and Rockaway Boulevard. Those plans were revised in 1929. Under the 1929 IND second system, 3 separate lines would serve southeastern Queens. A branch off of the IND Queens Boulevard line via Van Wyck Boulevard, the BMT Fulton Street L extension with the Jamaica and Hollis Avenue branches, and a Rockaway Winfield Spur branch to Springfield Boulevard. This would have given southeastern Queens 2 east-west lines and 1 north-south line, and would have given Southeast Queens residents the option of going into Central Brooklyn, Central Queens, Midtown, and Lower Manhattan, all within one ride, revolutionizing how Southeast Queens would operate in the future. However, the Great Depression put the brakes on those plans, as the city could barely pay for the construction of the IND first system. In 1939, when the economy was improving, the IND felt more comfortable about restarting the IND second system. Hence, the 1939 IND second system was born. In this plan, the IND Fulton Street line would be extended to 229th Street in Cambria Heights, and the IND Queens Boulevard line would have a branch via Van Wyck Boulevard to Rockaway Boulevard. This was a scale down of the 1929 plan, but nonetheless would still revolutionize how Southeast Queens would operate by giving Southeast Queens residents a one-seat ride to Brooklyn, Central and Western Queens, and Manhattan. In 1941, the U.S. joined World War II, causing the IND to postpone their grand ambitions. When the war ended, attention was shifted from building new subway lines to building connections between subway networks and building efficient terminals. The 1947 plan showed this, because although planners proposed a 2nd Avenue subway, most of the plans were aimed to beef up capacity and to integrate some LIRR commuter lines into the subway. Ironically, after years of proposing to give Southeast Queens a web of subway lines, there was nothing about integrating the LIRR commuter lines in Southeast Queens into the subway. In 1963, the city proposed 2 new lines in southeastern Queens: a Linden Boulevard subway off of the IND Fulton Street line to Springfield Boulevard, and a Queens Super Express line that would end in southeastern Queens, using the existing LIRR Locust Manor branch. Even though that plan went nowhere, this plan served as inspiration 5 years later. In 1968, the Program for Action was proposed. In the plan, the Queens Super Express will bypass the IND Queens Boulevard line, then join the line at Forest Hills. At Briarwood, trains would use the existing provisions for the Van Wyck subway to branch off of the Queens Boulevard line to a new subway under Archer Avenue. At Parsons Boulevard, trains would curve off of Archer Avenue and onto a portal to the LIRR Locust Manor branch, where trains would travel to Springfield Boulevard. LIRR service on the Locust Manor branch would end and would become subway only, giving Southeast Queens a north-south line. That plan was called Route 131D, or the Southeast Queens Line. As for east-west services, that was dropped. As businesses moved uptown, connections to Lower Manhattan became more unpractical, so there was no extension on Linden Boulevard to Cambria Heights. Planners saw the Southeast Queens Line project as an opportunity to replace the nearby Jamaica L. When the L was extended to 168th Street in 1918, it was seen as an eyesore. By the 1960s, there was significant opposition to the L, and businesses wanted to demolish it. The Program for Action would demolish the L and reroute it under the Southeast Queens Line at Archer Avenue. After the Southeast Queens Line would curve south to the Locust Manor branch, the new rerouted Jamaica Line would continue under Archer Avenue, with stops as far as 190th Street. By the 1970s, this plan, along with the Southeast Queens Line, was advanced, and construction began in 1972. Progress on the Southeast Queens Line went smoothly, and it was projected that the Southeast Queens Line was going to be completed in the early 1980s. But you know what happened next, as this video exists to cover the proposed but forgotten New York City subway projects. In 1975, the fiscal crisis hit, causing the cancellation of the Southeast Queens Line. Miraculously, the train lines leading up to the Southeast Queens Line, the 63rd Street Line, and the Archer Avenue subway were not canceled. Although there was a scandal on the quality of concrete used on the Archer Avenue subway, the Archer Avenue subway opened in 1988, 20 years after the Program for Action was proposed. In 1989, the 63rd Street Line opened, dead-ending at 21st Street. The 63rd Street Line was criticized due to its lack of connections to other lines, hence its nickname, the Tunnel to Nowhere. In 1992, the MTA explored how to connect the 63rd Street Line to the rest of the network. After some planning, they settled on the cheapest option, which was connecting the 63rd Street Line to the I&D Queens Boulevard Line. Work started in 1995, and the connection opened in 2001, 33 years after the Program for Action was proposed. As for the Southeast Queens Line, those plans were already shelved. The Southeast Queens Line has quite a lot of remnants, so we will divide them based on the I&D Fulton Street extensions and branch lines off of the I&D Queens Boulevard line. If you look outside an A train after Euclid Avenue, you will see a lot of tracks. Those tracks were projected to extend further into Queens on Pitkin Avenue and Linden Boulevard. There are rumors that the provisions contain a station called 76th Street, but the existence of the station has not been confirmed. Nico BK has an interesting video on the topic, so check that video out if you are interested. That is it for extensions of the I&D Fulton Street extension. So now, onto the actual Southeast Queens Line, Route 131C. After Briarwood on the I&D Queens Boulevard line, the tunnel widens, and a pair of tracks goes in the center and slopes down. What are those? Well, those were the provisions for the planned Van Wyck Boulevard branch line, as those trains would use this provision. When the Southeast Queens Line was proposed, these sets of tunnels were to be planned to connect to the Archer Avenue subway and the Southeast Queens Line. In 1988, when the Archer Avenue subway opened, E-trains now use these provisions to get to Jamaica Center. If you look at the tunnels of the E-train after the Jamaica Center terminal, you will see that they curve a bit. Why does that happen? Well, these were the tunnels where the Southeast Queens Line trains would travel on. However, those tunnels dead end right above the LIRR Locust Manor branch, meaning that trains only use this portion for storage. If you travel south of the Locust Manor branch and go to Baisley Boulevard, you will see Gwen Eiffel Park. What does the park have to do with the Southeast Queens Line? Well, that park was supposed to be a storage yard for Southeast Queens Line trains. In fact, that park is still zoned for transportation, meaning that that park can be converted into a yard if the Southeast Queens Line is built. Is that even a question? Of course we should. Southeast Queens is a dense area, and although it is served by a web of bus lines, those bus lines all converge at Jamaica. Even though Jamaica has some bus lanes, buses are still very prone to traffic. Moreover, the Merrick Boulevard corridor serves 34,000 riders a day, and the Guy R. Brewer Boulevard corridor serves around 17,000 riders per day. That is 51,000 riders a day from these corridors alone, and not counting the other various bus routes that run in southeastern Queens. Although the pandemic has lowered ridership throughout the system, ridership is back to 60 to 70% of pre-pandemic levels. This still makes ridership here comparable to some subway lines, like the IRT Nostrand Avenue line, showing how much demand there is for an actual rail line. I think that the 1968 Program for Action Plan should be revived, as that plan would give the most cost savings while serving the most passengers. Van Struckenragen has a great blog post on this, and I'll link it down in the description, but I will summarize his main points. First, we will disconnect the LIRR Locust Manor branch and shift all LIRR trains to the LIRR Montauk branch. To account for added capacity constraints, the Montauk branch will be expanded to 3 tracks, as there is an imbalance of peak direction and reverse peak direction trains. With the Locust Manor branch free of LIRR trains, it will be converted to subway status. A portal will be built around Liberty Avenue or the Tuskegee Airman Way, and trains would rise up and connect to the Locust Manor branch. Infill stations will be built at 108th to 109th Avenues, Linden Boulevard, Baisley Boulevard, and Springfield Boulevard. The current station at Locust Manor should be demolished, and the Gwen Eiffel Park should be turned into a yard to store trains for the E. Springfield Boulevard Station should be built with tilt tracks and a fly-under track to the yard so that the E can run 18 trains per hour. Combined with CBTC signals and the F running at 18 trains per hour, it will give Queens Boulevard Express tracks 36 trains per hour, or a train every 100 seconds. This is better than the 12 trains per hour the E runs to Jamaica Center, as the switch placement before the station limits capacity. These capacity improvements won't necessitate full de-interlining. My only recommendation is that the F and M should be swapped, where the F trains run via 53rd and M trains run via 63rd to keep the local and express tracks of the Queens Boulevard line separate from one another. But if you want to go full de-interlining and have the E run exclusively on the Queens Boulevard express tracks, then that would be better, as that would further lower delays and increase speeds when express trains arrive in stations. The Southeast Queens Line is one of the most important projects that the MTA should pursue. Not only would this benefit a huge transit desert, but most of the big work is done, as the tunnels are already there. This means lowered costs, as this extension could cost less than $1 billion. Not only would this extension serve a dense, transit-dependent region, it would also boost capacity on the E to 18 trains per hour, as the Jamaica Center terminal is no longer needed. That is a 50% boost in the E's capacity to southeastern Queens, which will ease some crowding on the Queens Boulevard line. Anyway, that marks the end of this video. What are your thoughts on the Southeast Queens line? Let us know in the comments below, and have a good day.